Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and after finding himself lost for an identity outside of his job, this runner had a realization that he needed to reprioritize some of the areas in his own life, including taking care of his mental and physical health. This drive led him to running, which eventually led him to run his first and second half marathon, and then eventually a full marathon. We talk a lot about mental health in this episode, as this runner was diagnosed with OCD, anxiety, and depression, and really found running as a tool to help work through some of these complex feelings. Really cool one today, so without further ado, please welcome Noah. Noah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this weekend. We were talking a little bit before, but we've been connected on TikTok a little bit. So know little bits and pieces of your journey, but thank you so much for coming on. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, Taylor, no, I appreciate it. And also I'm excited. I appreciate you letting me jump on. I know it's been hard. I feel like I'm jockeying for a position to get a guest spot on here. Like when I signed up, it was like 3 months in advance. So I'm super excited that you got everyone on here, and there's a lot of exciting stuff happening with the podcast. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're slowly chipping away at the guest form. So I guess little PSA, if you filled out a guest form, I'm not ignoring you. I'm slowly chipping my way through those. But yeah, excited to have you on. I always like to kind of start from the beginning. I know that your journey into running started before you took your first step. So if you want to kind of talk to us about, what your journey was like before you got into running, and then how you ended up in this space.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I like to talk about it. So for anyone listening that doesn't like follow me on TikTok or know anything about me, or hearing from me for the first time, my running journey started about just over a year ago. So January 2024, right in the new year, peak season for running, of course, frigid Chicago temperatures. So I live in Chicago, and how kind of my running journey got started was last year. I was kind of in a big transition point in my life where I was working for a company where I was like right out of college for about almost 4 years. It was a really great company, people that I loved, but I just had, for lack of detail, I had some really bad work habits. I would just say my background is in like a sales component, so a lot of it is like performance driven, a lot of numbers driven, which there's awesome people that I've met, but I just had really unhealthy work-life balance habits. I graduated college during COVID. A lot of things were virtual, online, so a lot of things were in the mix. But working long hours, pushing myself really hard for like probably 2 years too long, to where I kind of just had a moment where I was like, hey, I need to take a step back and just reassess what like life stuff is important. I got formally diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety, which I thought was just like worrying, which is really funny. So
Sure.
I thought I was just a worrier, but
Yeah.
during that time, there was a lot happening in life. So there's a lot of stress stuff, and I kind of just taken a moment back. I was like, hey, I kind of just need to do something new. Like I said, I loved all the people that I worked with, but I just needed kind of like a fresh change of scenery. So I got a new job at the time. But a big thing was, hey, I want to make sure I don't like repeat habits. So if I'm starting fresh from like, a job perspective, a big thing for me was like, how do I make sure that work isn't my identity? Because that was like a big thing for me. I did relatively well at like my first job. I was, I would say in a lot of the corporate outside piece of like, oh, like you're very successful. You have a lot going on. I was having a really hard time, like personally and like mentally on things. So when I made the move, at that time I was going to therapy. I'd like started like looking at like, okay, like medication opportunities. I was doing okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have something where I didn't just like dive back into a new job and like, this is now who Noah is. I'm this person now at this company rather than this person at this company. And then in 3 years, I end up in the same place.
Right.
That was something I was like really scared of. So a big piece of it was hobbies. And I always had a running joke with a friend of mine who was like, hey, like, what do you do for fun? It was kind of like, to be honest, it was a little bit of an insecurity of mine, but like most people do, they mask it with humor. I was like, oh, I don't know. I just kind of hang around. And, it was like, it was a running joke, but like at that time I had like no hobbies. So that was the thing, is like, if I'm not going to be all in, well, I'm going to do my best at work, but if like, this is not my identity, I don't want it to be, like,
Right.
who is Noah outside of this? So a friend of mine had actually run the Chicago Marathon the year before, and he was in my ear just like, hey, I think this would be really good for you. Because he's a close friend who knew some of the stuff that I was going through at the time, and some of the struggles I was having. So it was like, I don't know if a lot of people have this scenario, but I was just like, it was a new job, a lot of things are happening. I was just like, man, I gotta do something. So one of the days here in January, I just like bundled up here in Chicago and like went outside for like a 2 mile run. Horribly cold,
I
horribly
was gonna
slow. I
say,
have never,
good time of year to start.
I know, right? Yeah. So very motivated, but I've never been a runner before that. And it was like kind of a moment where, it's not like a grandiose moment, but I was just like, I just gotta like do something. Like I can't just
Hmm.
like sit at home. I can't just like, sit on Instagram, TikTok. I can't, I have to do something else. So I did that. I went out for the first run and I started kind of running a little bit more, kind of like, dip my toe in the water. And it was really good for me, for like a mental piece and to have something that's unrelated to work that like I'm doing something successful in. So even if I had like a really hard day at work, I'm still really successful and it's still been a good day where I've still moved my body, helped a lot with um, like just a lot of like the anxiety and stuff that I was going through. But where that kind of culminates is like I was running for about a month, like I think 2 weeks, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna sign up for a race because I'm like the most undisciplined person ever, unless I have some sort of
Like structure.
social pressure, yeah, like
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
some sort of like goal on it. So like I'm really hard for me just to keep up with it. So I signed up for a half marathon and then told everybody that I was doing it. So then everyone would always ask how it went. So that's kind of like started the structured journey piece. But yeah, a lot of it was I kind of burned myself out really hard and needed to do something that figure out who I was, and like what I liked to do, which is a really weird question to ask yourself when you're like, I don't know. I feel like I should have that figured out. It feels like a very weird question to ask. Cause like, what do I like? Who am I? But that was where a
Right.
lot of it like started. Was a lot of for the mental aspects of it and having something to help like balance stress. And it's grown to do a lot more since then. So
Totally. Wow, I think I can relate a lot to you on this one because I
yeah,
also have a sales job and had also kind of transitioned from like my identity being 100% this is my role and this is what I do and this is everything
yeah,
about me, to like, yeah, I need to find something else about myself. So definitely relate a lot to
hmm
you there. And I know that
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people do too. I know maybe if it's not even a sales job, just corporate life in general, it really
yeah,
kind of feeds that this is what you do. Like you go home, you think about this, you pre-plan. I hear a lot in like my current job, you want to think about tomorrow, you want to plan for
mhm,
tomorrow, stay a little bit late, prep for tomorrow. So it's even when you are not working, you're constantly thinking about it. So it's really
yeah,
easy for your identity to get tied up in something like that when it is literally your whole life. So that's really interesting. And I
mhm,
guess if you could just kind of walk us through, like, that's a tough mindset to work your way out of. How did running, as you were training for that first half marathon,
yeah.
like how did you feel? How did you start to work yourself out of that mindset? And like what was going through your head as you were doing that?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I kind of got, you know, um, so I ended at an interesting point here. For me, I'll just like share a little bit of my background. Like, I come from like a religious background, like,
Hmm.
like I'm a Christian personally, and a lot of like aspects of this is I really just thought it was kind of a spiritual journey of like I was going through something really hard to like learn something because I put a lot of things first that like weren't supposed to be first. I wasn't putting my faith first, I wasn't putting my wife first, and it
Mm.
was a lot of work, like we talked about, performance based. Um, and I think, as weird as it may sound, I feel like that happened for a reason. I feel like my priorities weren't in the right place. And if I didn't have like kind of a culminating, I wish it didn't happen the way it did, but I feel like if I didn't have a culminating point or like kind of the way things shook out or kind of having a hard time, I think it was actually good that that happened because it made me kind of reassess on a lot of things. So where I was kind of starting from was kind of like zero, to be honest. I had worked at a
Hmm.
company for about 3.5 years. I had left the company, but I had a lot of like identity built up, a lot of success on it. And I was like, wow, well, I had everything built up in like this role that I was, or this person that I was at this company. And I started a new job where nobody knows me. Whatever, I do a good interview, but I'm starting from zero. So that mindset, it was like, I was really it was good because it was like, okay, well, I get kind of a restart. Do I just do the exact same thing over again? Or do I change it? So that's where we talked about it. That's where it kind of came to, okay, how do I change this? How do
Hmm.
I make first things first? So a lot of that was spending more time like with my wife, her name's Erin, and spending more like personal time with that, and like not like you said, hey, prep for tomorrow, stay a little late,
Yeah,
hey, I'm answering Slack, so extra Wi-Fi. So really the mindset was do that first. That was like my number one thing is like, I want to make sure my personal relationships are first because that was like a big thing that was suffering. Um, so I needed to make sure that was done. And then second to that was, okay, how do I make sure that my physical and my mental like well-being are good? Because at the time, didn't exercise regularly. Like I played sports in high school. I played basketball. It was relatively somewhat athletic person. I could do things, but I wasn't regularly doing that. So second to that, after I got kind of my relationships and in check or like spending that time, just getting the time
sure.
balance right, logging off at 5, being done and like making that kind of balance was okay. How do I approach this? And for me, I've always just had the hard part of like, okay, for the gym or all that thing, there's a lot of barrier to entry. So with running, it was actually really nice because I just go outside and like, that was like the hardest part for me is like, consistency, barrier to entry, whatever. Some people they go to the gym early in the morning, all that. And like that's just really hard for me, and I'm still like kind of working through the discipline of it. But when the big thing for like the mindset shift was really what I kind of alluded to earlier was like, hey, I ran like 2 miles today, and like it doesn't matter what happened the rest of the day. Like, yes, whatever, you don't get a sale. This sucks. This happens, but something good happened today.
Yeah,
And
you
that was what
accomplished
was missing
something.
before. That was missing before was like, it was either all or nothing. It was thinking about the next day. It was about this. It was like, okay, I had this great day. And then it was also like, well, I got to be ready for tomorrow for exercise. So how do I like kind of keep this going? It was just like kept going.
Right.
And that worked for a while, not in a good way, but it eventually came back to bite me. But that was the big thing that was different, which is like, hey, like this, like I can be proud of this. And it sounds like rough to say, but like I didn't have a lot I didn't have a lot to be proud of outside of like work stuff because that's all I cared about at the time. And like it sounds sad to say out loud, but I'm like I wanted to have something where I could be proud of myself outside of that. And what that shifted to was more like I'm proud of the time I spend with my wife and like the time we spend together. Um, and hey, I got to like go. I feel good. I do a couple like run. And it was always good like for me where I'm just like I get anxious or I'll have like kind of like racing thoughts. Like it would always just get like a little bit more quiet, a little more peace at that. So I think that's what kind of kept me going.
Yeah.
And like two, I've never accomplished anything like of that scale of like a physical feat. So I was like, I just want
Hmm.
to like do something to where like I can be proud that I accomplished this goal. And like, I'm like, know, I never thought I could do. I was like, I can't run. Like, I can't do anything. It was really, it took me like forever just to get up to running like 5 miles consistently. I think that was the big thing was like the piece of like, no matter what happened today, I have a sense of accomplishment and just more feeling balanced, I think was the big thing. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about, I wasn't 100% in on this thing. And like, I kind of felt like I was the right order of things were going on. Like, like my faith, my family, and then like my mental well-being and then work, and it was never that
Yeah.
before. So I think that was kind of the driving factor of like it felt like it was kind of clicking a little bit more. I felt good, less stressed, but that sense of accomplishment every day regardless of what happened was a big like driving factor. And that only built because then I'm running 6 miles, then I'm running 7, and then I found myself, it was funny when I was making like because on TikTok I made a lot of videos during this part. It was always all right, now I'm running my longest run ever. And that was like every week. So it was
Every
always
week.
something
I
that
know.
was
It's so
cool.
fun.
So it was always
Yeah.
fun. It's like, all right, I have a new thing coming up. That was always good. It was like a big like piece of accomplishment. It's like, okay, it's like a new, I'm always pushing myself like on a weekly basis. What's the next like longest run or something? So I think that was a
Totally.
big piece of it.
Yeah, it's so fun training for your first race. I mean,
Yeah.
it's you realize it I think more once you're over the hump, like once you've already ran the race, but looking back on it you're like, wow, I was really hitting those milestones
hmm
every single week and that's what really keeps you
Yeah.
going.
It's an
So
interesting
that's so
rhythm to
cool.
be in too, where you're just like you're doing a new distance every single week. You're like,
Right.
oh wow, I'm doing it again. And it was just like I said, after like the fourth or fifth TikTok, I'm like, it's just every week I'm like longest run ever. I'm like, yeah, that's you going up. But it is a cool,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool kind of build.
Yeah, it's just something you can keep chasing for sure.
hmm
Well, cool. So first big milestone, I guess, was this half marathon.
Yeah.
If you could walk us through the timeline, like from when you put on shoes the
hmm
first day that you started running to half marathon, how long was that?
Yeah. So I think that was so I ran in May. It was it's the I think it's like Chicago Spring. I guess Lifetime is who sponsors it, and they do it every single month. Or every single year. So it's a Lifetime half marathon and like 5K here in Chicago. A lot of people run it. It's like I think like 10,000 people run it here. It's
Oh,
pretty big,
wow.
like half
Yeah, that's
marathon.
big.
Uh, but that was from January to May. So that's what January, February, March for me. It's like 4 or 5 months from like never running to then. So that was big. It was a lot of fun. I got, like everybody, I had the moment where you're like, I just need to get some good running shoes. I had like some old Under Armour running shoes from like 3 years ago that I had, and my feet were killing me. So
Yeah, you
I
realize pretty
listened to,
quick.
yeah, you're pretty after you're running a few miles, or your mileage is more than like 2 miles a week. Like I need something more comfortable. So a
Yeah.
buddy of mine recommended going to like a Fleet Feet and doing kind of the testing of your feet and your arches and all that. So that was really helpful. I went with what I had actually. I told a cousin of mine. I told her. I said her New Year's resolution, because it was right during resolution time. It's like she's like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
run a half marathon, but she was just gonna run it on her own.
Just
And
to
that was
do
just
it.
like her
Yeah.
thing, just to do it. And I was like, you should. I said, I signed up for this race. You should totally do it with me because it would be a lot of fun. Because then our families are really close, and then everybody can come support us. So I kind of had that, kind of fun part. Someone else was running the race. His family were built in, so that was a lot of fun. I was getting the shoes. We went together and did that, and I got like set up with the Brooks Ghost Max. Like, and I'm the type of person like, for better or for worse, if I like go, like I've been at my barber, I followed him to like 4 different barbershops because he gets my hair right,
Sure.
and I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Like that's like good. You can take care of me. I'm gonna come to you every single time. Like you don't
Right,
mess
right.
it up the first time. I'm good. So I got set up with some Brooks Ghost Maxes. That was like life changing, just like having a nice running shoe. So I got those. And I was like, I've gone through 2 pairs of those, and now I'm running like the Ghost Max 2s, which I highly recommend. A lot of fun, a lot of cool. I'm a big Brooks person. Um, but did that, and then yeah, just kind of like built up into it. It was. I feel like I was falling down the rabbit hole of, you know, zone two training, the difference between, and that was a big thing. I feel like a lot of people go through. For me, I was just like running as fast as I can, and I was like,
Sure.
I'd come
Yeah.
back from a run and I'd be like, I'm spent. It's like Saturday morning. Like I can't do anything else today. And it's because my heart rate was at like whatever 170, and I'm
Yeah.
like going way too fast. So that was the fun part too of it, is I got to learn a lot about like my body, but also like the running community, where I feel like it's so like cool. I got a nice watch. I had a friend of mine who gave me this Garmin that I worked with. He was like,
Oh,
"This is my Apple
nice.
Watch." I know, right?
That's great.
He
Love
was
that
like, "Hey,
friend.
do you want to use this Garmin? This is the Forerunner 55." And he's like, "Do you want to like use it?" Because I was using my phone at the time, and like Strava on your phone, it's not accurate at all.
Yeah.
And treadmills, I hate treadmills. I feel like it's never right. So he gave me that. So then I was just kind of like, I was getting the shoes. I was like, I got, I was a little bit more into that. I got some like running socks. I had like the watch, and I was posting on Strava. And then that was like a lot of what kind of built it and kept it going. I had, like I said, I had a friend who ran Chicago the year before, so I was in like a group chat with him and some of my other friends who had ran that. Like, and they were kind of like, oh, like I was going from a race, and they were like sharing things. So it was really cool, like the community piece of it. Yeah, and then I started just posting on TikTok, just about like, hey, I posted on TikTok for like years, just like I don't know, I like kind of the creative outlet of things. Like if I think of something funny, I'll just like videotape it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'll just like record this because this is like kind of what I'm going through. So I started just posting I was training, and it was a lot of fun because we were talking before this, but there's a lot of people in Chicago. There's a lot of like
Big running
just
scene.
yeah, there's a lot. I think even the last person you had on was a Chicago creator, if I can't remember, or one of the last couple. But yeah, just a lot of that. So it was cool to be able to post and like get a lot of support um, from like people that are just running, but also people that have like hundreds of thousands of followers that like follow me and comment on my stuff. And like I only have a few thousand followers, but it's just like really cool of that scene. It's very supportive. So it was like that was a lot of fun too. So that was a lot of it. When we talked about it, you're hitting a milestone every single week, and then we had gotten to like the half marathon. I felt pretty good. Like I would say, I definitely gave myself quite a bit of training time. The first half was good. I think so that 13.1. The funny part was I didn't until after my first race realize the importance of calories in versus calories out. So I was
Mm.
probably about 10 pounds heavier, close to 10 pounds heavier than I am now. I'm a little bit, I'm not like, I don't have a lot of mileage right now, so I'm a little bit heavier than I usually am when I'm training. But so I was like running this race as someone who's like, yeah, I weigh around 220, which is like, it's pretty on the heavier side for a runner. Like, it's a little hard. I'm about 6 foot, so I'm like just a bigger person.
Yeah.
Um, so that was interesting. I had like some knee issues, a little bit like ankle stuff.
Mm.
I think that was with like some of the extra weight I had on. But I ran the race, and it was good. I hit the not the wall, but it was really hard about mile 8. I think was when I was like mile 8 to 10 was like a really rough stretch. But I finished it. My cousin beat me by like 10 seconds.
Oh,
So
brutal.
I know. And I was like, dang. And looking in retrospect, I'm like, I really took it easy. I didn't want to like gas myself out. That was the worst thing. I
Yeah,
was like, I don't
yeah.
want to hit a wall. I don't want to start too early. I probably could have done better. But like right at the end, I was able to finish strong and finish the finish line. But that was cool. It's just really big, like you said, sense of accomplishment. Like a lot of people, I got a little teared up, like finish line. Like, wow, like I just did something physically that like I never thought I could like do that. So it was really cool. And then my body was just destroyed the next like couple days. Like we barely like walk. So it was over the
Sure.
weekend. I took like the Monday off. Everyone came over after and celebrated, and then it took like 2 days, and I was like, I'm just going to sign up for a full marathon. So then I signed up for the full marathon I ran, which was the Milwaukee Lakefront Marathon. So it took me a total of like 48 hours to sign up for my next race. And I didn't know if I was going to run another race. It was just like, this is the only thing I was going to do. And then I feel like a lot of people say either you run a race and you're done, and you're like, oh, great, I accomplished it. Or you're like, oh, I'm going to like keep doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big piece for me. So
Cool. Yeah, you're right. It does fall into two categories. It's either I'm never doing this again, or let's sign up right
yeah,
away. At least you gave yourself 48 hours, I guess. I've had people
no,
on that
yeah.
like immediately after they're like, let's go. So you had some time to
Mhm.
think it over. But I was the goal. I mean, you said that you went to, I forget who you said, but a friend or a cousin's their Chicago Marathon in 2023, right? So
Yeah, they'd
was
run
the
the year before.
goal? Yeah, okay. So was the goal always to run a marathon? Like even when you were training for that half, did you kind of have it in the back
No,
of your mind, or you okay,
nope.
so you were going for that
It was
half and
just
that
to
was
do
it.
something. It was just to do
Yeah.
something. And that's where I
Yeah.
was like, I kind of when I started the running, I was like, so I'm just like, I'm not like I'm not a very disciplined person, just like naturally. Some people are like, hey, I got to get up and go to the gym, and they're just like good at that, just like because they want to like be habitual. And like I hope to like get there at some point where I was like, just like do it for my health. But I used to be thinking, I was like, I'm just not gonna. I just knew I wasn't gonna stick with it unless I had like something I was like training for.
Yeah.
It was gonna drop off, like a lot of other things, and because of how good it was for me and how good it made me feel, I was like, I didn't trust myself at that time to like keep it going just cause, um, or just rely off motivation. So it sounds bad,
Yeah.
but I was like, the goal was like, I basically signed up. I told everybody at work, and I told everybody, and everybody bought me stuff for Christmas or whatever, like late Christmas or whatever, or not, yeah, for that. Um, 'Cause, yeah, it was January I started running it, but it was like right before I signed up, started running. And people were buying me like late Christmas gifts and all that stuff. And like, yeah, I heard you want like you're interested in running now. And I'm like, so then it was just like then the
Yes,
social
I am.
pressure of everybody
Yeah.
telling me because everyone's going to ask about it. And I like it was like 100 whatever $150 to sign up. So
Sure.
it was just that. So it was never the goal to run, but it was more just I need to do something. It was again I need to do something so I don't like go insane. Like I just need to
Totally.
make sure I don't get stressed out of my mind again in like a year or two. And just so that's what the motivation was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, then after that, I was like, well, I did half of it, so I might as well
Do the whole thing.
do the full thing. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it kind of naturally kind of brought us there.
Hmm.
So we gave ourselves some time, right? That half marathon, and then the marathon you were
Hmm.
running wasn't until later in the year. I think I saw like October time frame, right?
Yeah, it was October, so I ran that in like May time. So I had the summer to like train. So
Cool. So what were you thinking? What were you piecing together in terms of training at that point? Like, were you planning on, all right, as soon as I signed up, I'm starting
Mhm.
today in my base building season, or did you give yourself a few months? Like, what did that
Yeah.
look like?
So I think it was like Memorial Day weekend was like kind of like when it shook out. I think it was like roughly then. So I gave that time because it was just time with the family. It was like kind of the kickoff of summer, just like hang out a little bit, give your body some time. So I think I gave myself 2 weeks off. I think is what I did.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe it was 2 weeks. It was either a week or two, but it wasn't a long amount of time. Because when I was worried that I was like, I don't want to lose what I have, and I kind of just want to build on it. And I think I had etched it out to where I was like, if I do an October race, and I'm a big like ChatGPT user, so it's like feeding everything into there. I'm like, can I do it? And it's like, yes, but you want to make sure that you're not like waiting too much longer. So I
Mm-hmm.
gave
Mm-hmm.
myself a week or two off, and then I jumped into it. And for I know a lot of people. I don't even know. I know there's some like well-renowned marathon plans. What's the big one that everyone uses? I feel like
Hal
it's
Higdon, that
yeah,
like the
that's the
big
one.
Boston Marathon one. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
couple.
Hal Higdon. Is that it? Is that what it is? Hal
Yeah,
Higdon.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That
I
one.
don't even I haven't even looked into it, but I just know from listening to a lot of the content, a lot of people use that for like it. But I'm a big AI user. Like my first job, I was like it was in tech, and there was some AI infused pieces of it. So in ChatGPT, I was like, I'm just going to feed it everything from like a biometric standpoint of it knows for me, which also is probably not good for to have all of my data on my physical performance, whatever. Well, I don't know where that
Right.
lives, but and I was like, hey, here's my goal. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I finished for my marathon. Because my first half, I finished about 2 hours and 42 minutes. So it was like the
Mm-hmm.
12, 20-ish average, like nothing stellar at any means. It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
my first goal for the half was I want to like not walk. And I did that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was like, hey, here's my time. Number one, if I like trained, because I knew nothing. Like I was like, I don't know what I should shoot for, what I shouldn't shoot for. Like I signed up for the half marathon. I was like, yeah, I'll run like a 10-minute mile. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So I don't know. Like, so I was still so
Yeah,
new. Yeah,
how
it wasn't
could
even
you?
close.
Yeah, it's all brand new for sure.
So that was helpful because it was like, okay, based off this, I think you could do this if you train for X amount of time. And then it was just like, hey, okay, great. I want to do a long run. I want to do this. These are the days I want to train. And I was like, put it all in the spreadsheet. So then it just gave it to me. That's what I did. So I did it for about, and that was kind of the training plan I followed. And it was pretty typical. I think I did like Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then a long run on like Saturday. And then
Cool.
most of it was like easy paces during the week. I didn't do any like interval training or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do that for Chicago, which I'm training. I'm going to start training for in like the next month or so. But that's kind of the training plan that I followed.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're the first person that's come on that's put together like their own training plan using AI. So I actually think that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
like that.
I've seen some other people on TikTok that have tried it.
Yeah,
Maybe about a long time ago, but you just have to, it's like anything. It's going to be as generic as
sure.
much you give it. So that would be my thing is like to make sure you don't get hurt. Cause I don't want to trust it fully, but like I put, here's my weight, here's my height, here's how active I am during the week. Here's the race that I ran. And that was even for the half marathon. Like here's my base level. Like I don't do any, I'm pretty sedentary, X or Y. And like, so I gave it a ton of information and
Sure.
I reiterated like 5 times. And I finally got to a point where it felt good. It was cool. I was like, well, I'll try it here. And it worked. Like I would say that the plan went well for me. I didn't like
Cool.
hurt myself or feel like I was unprepared. So
Cool. Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about marathon plans on the show, but I think that as long as you're one, and then this is easier said than done for your first
yeah,
marathon, but as long as you're listening to your body, because if things feel wrong, it's not just because you're a brand new runner. Like it could be that your plan isn't the best fit for you. So as long as you're listening to your body, you're being comfortable not ramping up mileage every single weekend. So if you have a
yeah,
weekend where 15 doesn't feel right, maybe drop it back down to 14, something like that. Just like being flexible, I
yeah,
guess is my point. You don't have to follow it. I think there's a quote out there that your plan should be a what is it? Should be a guide, not a script, or something like that. I
yeah.
definitely think
That's
that
good.
rings true for most plans, but that's cool. So I imagine that if it was a pretty generic plan, it was just having you kind of build mileage for your long runs
Mm-hmm.
every weekend. Did you hit any points that were big milestones for you? So either like a run where you thought was going to go well, it
Mm-hmm.
didn't go well, or a run that maybe you had lower expectations that ended up going pretty well.
Yeah, I think the first like big one, because I kind of started over again. It wasn't like, okay, great, you ran 13.1, now you're doing 14, 15. It was kind of like you built back up again. It was like whatever. I think it was like started around 7 or 8. I think the first big one was like running a half marathon again. But as like a training plan. Well, it was like supposed to be 13. I was like, I'm just gonna do the half. I did that like it was over a weekend at my parents' house. I think it was like someone's birthday, and we had an extra day. And number one, don't run. Uh, maybe okay. Just be careful when you run in 90-degree weather.
Oh,
And
for sure.
direct sunlight, and make sure you're fueling, because that was what I did. And like I was like, oh yeah, I'll like grab some water fountains, and I had like a bag of like peanuts. Not nearly enough. It was overall just very poor decision making of mine. But um, I think that was a big one because I ran a half marathon and like I didn't need people around. I mean, it would have been nice. I didn't have like people on the sidelines, or I didn't have like this race thing. And I was like, I just did it, and like I did it, and I was like, I knew I could do it. So that was a big one, I would say, just like running a half marathon. Like, wow, now this is. And it was funny. My wife was like, she's like, wow. So like, there was this big thing where we're all going, and she's saying it not like in a bad way, but she's like, we were all like prepped for this distance, and now you're just like running it like it's a normal week as you're running 13.1.
Yeah.
And more. So that was a really big one, I would say, of just like, wow, like, okay, so now this is like old news, which was kind of cool for me. I was like, okay, like I can do this wasn't my limit. And I'm like, all right, well, I knew I could do it. I think a fun one too, I was training at the time, but we went on a Europe trip for like our anniversary.
Hmm.
So we went to our first time in Europe, and I was in Barcelona, Spain, and I got to run like 4 or 5 miles, just like in a completely different, uh, country, city.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. It was just like cool, just like kind of soaking in from that end, kind of the culture of it. I did a few runs out there, and that was kind of fun. It wasn't anything from like, but it was just cool to be able to do it in another city and kind of stamp that off. It was fun. So
Yeah, it's a cool way to explore a city on foot.
yeah,
You don't know, not a lot of
yeah,
people do that. So
yeah,
it is pretty unique.
yeah. And she
But
was like, so we didn't have service because we didn't want to pay. Like number one, we didn't want to be on our phones, and then
sure.
second, it was like, we don't, we don't want to pay for whatever
Yeah,
a
it's
week
like
and a half of
$20 a day in
service.
some spots. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yes. So, I mean, Barcelona is really walkable. A lot of European cities are just very walkable. So it was nice. I was like, I feel like I can get back. She's like, when are you going to be back? And I was, I'm going to be back at roughly this time. I was like, if I don't, give it like another 15 minutes and whatever, then like maybe
Yeah,
things
don't
that
panic.
maybe start to panic at this time, but like give me a little bit of
Yeah,
buffer time out. So I had to make sure I was like back at the right time and
right.
remember the path and everything. So I didn't run too far, but it wasn't too bad, but it was funny.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So it sounds like training for the most part was pretty good for you. How do you
hmm
feel like those longer runs that you were talking about, kind of just being in your own head or listening to a podcast, something like that,
hmm
with some of the mental health stuff that you were talking about before? Like, how do you feel like those longer runs were helping with that?
Yeah. So I have an interesting thing I found out about myself is I don't like spend a lot of time alone with like my thoughts. I
Hmm.
kind of just keep going. I like to consume media, but it was interesting at a point, and even my wife had pointed out of you just always listening to something. So like I'm always
Hmm.
listening to YouTube videos, podcasts, or I always have like an audio on. And I still listen to a lot of like content, like doing the dishes and all that stuff. But I think that was hard because I didn't spend a lot of time with just my thoughts and things. And during the long runs, you listen to a podcast, but like it's for 4 hours. So you're it's
Yeah,
just
you zone
you. Like
out.
there's not a lot of
Yeah.
distractions. You're just gonna
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
gonna maybe zone out. It's more I would listen to that stuff just some more like it doesn't feel like I'm running for 4 hours straight. But it would just be a lot of like I don't know, just like mental processing of things that are going on. If I'm anxious, I'm on a run, and a lot of things for me would be like, I am anxious, so I need to go for a run. That would be a
Hmm.
big piece of it. And that's, if I have a hard day at work now, I feel good. Like after I get a run in, it's kind of my way to process things. So I feel like I processed a lot of stuff, or just sat with things that are uncomfortable to sit with, just like, anxious thoughts or, for me, when people hear OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, a lot of people think it's like the physical part of it, which is a
Hmm.
big piece of it. I'm not discounting that, the cleanliness, the orderness of it, checking a lot of things. Is my door locked? All that. That's a lot of like they call physical compulsions. For me, it's a lot of like mental stuff, and that's like a
Hmm.
side of OCD that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Is like intrusive thoughts, like intrusive thought patterns. That's why I say I thought I was a worrier. Like, I just get some like random like worried thoughts about something like they just pop in your head, and like and then you will obsess over them. Like, why am I thinking this? Does this mean something? Did I like leave something else? Or does this person not like me or this thing? And like, a lot of that time on runs is when I'm combating that in
Mm-hmm.
my mind. And um, there's a big difference between sitting. There's two things. You don't want to distract yourself from those, but like, I almost felt like it was like I've never said this out loud, but I feel like it's almost like a fight at that end where it's like I'm experiencing these things,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like doing something where I'm pushing my body and I'm pushing myself and I'm like challenging myself. And like it's almost like a war that's being waged in your mind, which sounds really weird um, from someone not, going through that. But, that was where a lot of those long runs came into play because I'm running for 3 or 4 hours at a time. But it felt good because like for for lack of a better way to describe it, I felt like I was winning. It felt good every single time, and I would finish that run, and I'd be like, man, like I just kind of like I kicked ass today. Like I did
Yeah.
that. Like I feel like really good. So that was it, and it was a lot of the self confidence build of those things, or finding a good way to cope with those things. Because, like I said, of the mental side of OCD, you can get like pretty nuts. You can put yourself into a spiral. So to be able to combat that with healthy, and that's the main thing, healthy habits,
Right. Right.
was huge. So, for people that feel that, or people that have similar mental health stuff, that's why running was so big for me. Cause like, and that's why I felt like I was building on it every single week. We talk about the run, and like, I'd have a hard week, and I would do this and I would accomplish this big thing. And I'd have that time. So instead of avoiding or having to listen to this 3 hour long YouTube video essay to just like, I don't know, not think about how stressed I am, or trying to avoid myself. I was like kind of combating those in a much different way. So,
Yeah. I really love how you said that because I've had people come on and talk about kind of mental health on the show before, but
hmm
it's always been described, and maybe it's just because it's a really hard
hmm
situation to describe, but always been described like running as like a processing tool or a time to
hmm
process. But the way that you described it's more than that. And so I'm glad
hmm
that you kind of said it like that because that it is like, yeah, almost like a battle you're fighting, a fight that you're fighting
yeah,
while you're on the run. And yeah, maybe the actual physical act of running is the tool to help you
hmm
process, but what you're doing is still a war, like you said, or a fight in your head that you're
yeah.
having to work through. And I've also heard, I'm curious if this is a similar experience to you.
Mhm.
We're going to get to the marathon story. Don't worry. This is just a fun little
No,
pivot.
this is
But,
good. Yeah, let's keep going.
I think that, I've heard other people describe like the physical exhaustion is what finally takes
hmm
that like first layer of your brain down so that you can
hmm
actually focus on the things that are actually bothering you. Do you feel like that? Like what you had to get over a certain point where you were at a point of like exhaustion to really get to the root of, what was going on?
Just going on a walk and getting sun on my face actually does help a lot and help me process things. So for me, that was like a big thing. Is like I was very, like I mentioned earlier, I graduated during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
worked remote. I didn't step foot in like an office or like talk to people in person for like 3 hours or
Yeah.
3 years,
Yeah. 3 years.
as it felt
Yeah.
like. Yeah. Um, so for me, it was like a lot of that physical piece of it. So that's a big gateway for me to like feeling better is moving my body, getting sun on my face, and all that. And I feel like a lot of running and all that, even a nice long walk to an extent, kind of stimulates that. It kind of
Yeah.
gets me in the mode for that a bit, which I mean I would say it's a little bit backed by science of just moving your body, you feel better. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. Like, a lot of that stuff can be tied to the back just how we physically act.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I love it.
hmm
Everybody's experience with running and mental health is so unique. So I'm glad that we're, getting other
Yeah.
perspectives today. That's great.
hmm
Cool. So not to have a rough transition here, but want to get back to the marathon. How were we feeling like the week leading
Yeah.
up to the marathon, the couple days leading up, like
hmm
nerves, excitement? How were we feeling?
Yeah. So the marathon I ran, a little bit about the race itself and then leading up to it. So it was a Milwaukee
Yeah.
Lakefront Marathon. It's from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. For here, it's not too far. It's about an hour and change from here. So the reason I didn't do Chicago, and I'm here in Chicago, is because I signed up too late. Because what it
Mm,
was like May time, and it was like May or June time, and I think it was, yeah, I don't know where lottery stuff closes. There was no lottery thing obviously at that time, but I think maybe yeah, I might have just missed it too, but there wasn't
like
fundraising. I wasn't that
charities.
clear to,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was too late at that point. So I looked around Midwest stuff. And I found Milwaukee, and I was like, yeah, it'd be great. Like, it's not far. If I want people to come cheer me on, it's only like an hour and a half drive. Like, it's not that crazy of like a travel. So I did that one, and leading up to it, I felt pretty good. Like I said, I did the 20 miler. A lot of that time leading up to it was in like September time. Was training in the dead heat of summer. It was pretty brutal for a minute. As some Chicago heat, but uh, I felt good leading up to it. I think it was interesting. I had like someone even ask me the morning of, because we did my shakeout run. We got there. We got our packet. We did a hotel the night before, and my family came up. We had like dinner the night before. Had some good Italian food, pasta, carb loaded, and it almost felt like some people are just like really nervous. Some people are like, I don't feel like I'm ready. Some people are like, I'm ready to go. I almost felt like it was kind of a purgatory middle ground. Like I'm kind of just ready to go. Like I
Yeah.
kind of don't want to wait
I
any
got nothing
longer.
else I can
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So they're like, are you nervous? I'm like, I'm just kind of ready. Like, because I've
Yeah.
been doing this because I realistically I was training for like 10 months because I kind of bake in the half marathon training on like a week or two off. I'm like, I've been running for like 10 months to like kind of do
Yeah.
this. Um, so it was an odd piece. And I think that was the thing too, is I felt good in my training. I felt like I had done my thing. I didn't feel like I was going to hurt myself. I was really like, I wanted to make sure that, I don't hit the wall. So I think that was like leading up to it. The runs were good. The shakeout run was good. And it was just like, I'm ready to like do this thing. So it felt
Yeah.
like I was ready, which is, I mean, it's a great spot to be in. I was going to say, not
Totally.
competitive, but it was interesting. I was on, uh, what was it? The Average Runner podcast with Shayla on TikTok, and she asked that. She's like, "How was your shaker run?" Like for me, it was like I felt like I had never run before, and I was like, I was just like kind of running, and I'm like, I'm just ready to go. Like so, I just did 20 minutes and ready to rock. So I felt good. I felt confident in my training. I feel like a good setup. I did miss like one long run week, which I was a little worried about, but I feel like I had buffered in enough time to where I wasn't worried about it. So.
Yeah. Cool. No, you're right. That is a good feeling to go in, even if you have no other choice. It's like it's a good feeling to go in, at least feeling like you're ready. So that's good. So obviously we got to the start line. How were we feeling? What was the energy like? What was the start line feeling?
Yeah.
Same thing.
So it's funny. I mentioned earlier, and the reason I mentioned that the half marathon was a lot like 10,000 people here in Chicago is this marathon, and it's been going for a while. Milwaukee Lakefront, but Milwaukee, smaller city. I think there were only like 3,000 people that ran
Big difference.
the marathon.
Yeah.
So it was not a lot. So much smaller race. I remember like getting out there in the morning. We got a hotel right next to the start line, and I got out there a little bit early. And like I don't think they even set up like any of the stuff for the start line till like an hour and a half before, it felt like. So it was very interesting. It was but it was cool. People started trickling in. There were people warming up, and it was just kind of like waiting for it to start. Like I said, took some pictures, had some coffee in the morning. Had kind of like I think like just like a banana, like a granola bar, just like something light to make sure that I was good. Because that was my goal for this one too, is I wanted to run it and not walk or like, just get destroyed with have to find restrooms every few miles. So it was cool. The sun was rising. That was really cool. I think, a lot of it was like 7 a.m. start too. So I think those are always fun, the sun peeking up about it. And then, found my pacer that I was running next to. My goal for that was like to run between 5:10 and 5:15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it was between 5 hours and 5 hours and 15 minutes. That was what I wanted to finish. I don't want to finish above that. I figured I could finish in that time if I did anything faster. That'd be amazing. But that was kind of my goal time. So I set up behind my pacer, and then I do listen to music for the races just because for that. So kind of queued up, and I think Eye of the Tiger was one of the songs that was on there. So kind of like,
set the mood.
Vibed out a bit. Yeah. So it was good. It was good energy going into the race.
Cool. All right. Well, let's break down the marathon then. Usually I say you can break it up however you want, but maybe let's talk about the first 13 first. How was the first half marathon for you?
Yeah, the first 13. So the race itself, we ran through Milwaukee. So the city was a lot of it. So it was the city to start, and then it was the neighborhoods, which I think is my favorite part of the race. The first half is actually my favorite. So I was like cooking. I felt really good. Like I would say the first like 8, 9 miles, like it was fine.
No
Like it was
problem.
cool. Yeah, I was like in a good pace. I was behind I think it was like the 12-minute pacer is where I wanted
Hmm.
to stay around 12, 10. So I worked with the pacer for about, 6, 7 miles because I wanted to make sure I didn't start too fast. And that was the big
Hmm.
thing is like, and everyone says it, but like, it's so easy to start fast. Like,
For sure.
again, it's not like a race and I'm going to win the race, but it is, I don't know, there's something mental about everybody passing you and you're feeling you're not going fast enough. So like I started and like the pacer was very helpful because if I didn't stay with them, I would have definitely, I was already going too fast. You know what I mean? And like my watch and all that. And, sometimes GPS doesn't work. Um, so that was good. I didn't start too fast. So I was kind of taking it easy because I knew I wanted to make sure that I didn't gas myself out or start too fast because I knew I would be it would just be hell the last end of it if I didn't do that, if I didn't build. So I did a good pace of that, a good piece of that. And about mile 8 or 9, my feet started hurting.
Mm.
So, pretty early, I would say, in the race. Like,
Yeah.
and I think I just need some better running socks. I think that's like the one piece of it. Is I need some better socks. I could maybe, upgrade my gear a little bit because the shoes are good, but I hit a threshold. My feet start hurting. So that was it. But also, um, the race in Milwaukee, you run across a big bridge. It's called the Hone, is what it is, and it's like kind of takes you over whatever I think that's Lake Michigan. That piece, a little bit piece of it to over, and it's like kind of a big, to get into the city and out. And it's really, it's something. Like, and everything I read online and Reddit, and they've redone the track a couple times. Apparently, said it
Yeah.
was a flat race. It was not a flat race.
Yeah.
I need to do a better job of looking at race actual uh, routes because I was just like, oh, people say it's a good flat race. I'll do this one.
It can be tough to
But,
tell.
yeah, but mile 8, so right when my feet start hurting, we start going up the bridge, and it's about and then I'm going from here, running this flat to like
Yeah.
right about here, and you're feeling it every single piece,
Yeah.
just slightly up there. So then we're going up the bridge, and that was rough, and we had to finish on the bridge, which I'll share in the second half of what that was like. But then I got to go down, and then I think about mile 12 or so, we were then running in like kind of like the highway, which was really interesting. So it almost
Mm.
felt like the logistics of the race they were trying to make. And again, it's not as big of a city, so they're trying to make up like where the distance is. So it was a lot of people up front, not even a lot, like a few people with signs and all that, and you're running on the highway because
Mm.
they closed it off. It's just, we talk about mental battles. There's a lot of time with your thoughts on
That'll
that
do
one.
it. Yeah.
But for the first like few, I think every 4 miles, I think maybe 6 miles in, I saw my family. It was my wife, my family, my sister, my brother, and then my mother-in-law, and then my wife's stepdad. We're all there. So
Cool. Yeah, always
yeah,
good to have some crowd support.
yeah.
Um and then yeah, so we got to the half marathon point. What I guess I didn't ask this before, but was
Mhm.
this a point to point run or was this more of a loop style track if you remember?
It's kind of a loop.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't say so. We probably finished a mile short of where we started. So it wasn't exactly
Oh,
where we
okay.
started, but it's kind of like it was close. So it was kind of
Got
like
it.
it was a little bit of both. It was the big circle piece of it, but we started a little bit shorter than where we started. We ended
Got
a
it.
little bit
Okay.
shorter than where we started. So
Okay, cool. So you were gonna have a turnaround point at some point. So I guess what was it
mhm.
like? Well, take it from there. What was the rest of the race like? Where did you hit the turnaround point? All that good
Yeah.
stuff.
So when we do the halfway, so the part was I had a bunch of like Ziploc baggies, and Erin, my wife, she was kind of like the holder of this, and
Yeah,
it wasn't a very spectator friendly
with the
course
highways and the
because
bridges.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You're like, it's not just people sitting on the highway with signs and all that. With
sure.
Chicago, you run through neighborhoods and everyone's kind of there. It's constantly people around. So I could have done a better job of trying to do that. Of trying to like help set people up a little bit more. So they were trying to like Uber back and forth. They saw me the first like 2 times, and then it was mile like 15. I think I was like, hey, I was like texting my phone. I was like, hey, like because I think I loaded myself for about halfway through the race. I had gels. I had some aspirin. Like, I didn't have aspirin. I had gels to get me through the first half of the race. I think I was taking every 4 miles or so. And I was like, hey, I'm out. Like, can you, like, I really need to see you guys at like, mile 15 or 16, I think it was, whatever. because I was starting to feel it a bit. I'm over
Mm-hmm.
halfway, 15 to 20 mile, or it was kind of the dog days a little bit. You're not quite finished. You just finished half. It's like a weird in between space. Um, and she's texting me saying like, "Hey, like we tried to Uber over. We're not going to be able to see you until like mile 20."
Oof, yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have any gels. At that point, she had like aspirin because my feet were hurting, and just like to kind of take the edge off. Um, and then I had like a bag of Skittles or whatever, just for like a little bit of sugar to kind of like
Mm-hmm.
get you going in the system. That was and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was like, I don't know like what's going to happen. So then I'm like texting the group chat while I'm running this, and I'm like, can somebody like I need to see somebody at this time. Can somebody please make it like mile 15, 16? I don't care what it is. We split up like, and I need this. It's like I need some sort of food. I need um like if you can grab like a candy, if you can grab like some sort of like I don't know like energy, like something. Just like I need to fuel myself. And I'm running, and my family they all put like neon yellow shirts on. It was funny. My mom's like, "Well, we want to make sure you can see us." I would definitely see them
I love it.
because there's not that many people. It's not like it's Chicago, but at that point, it was nice because I could see up ahead that there were a bunch of people in neon, and I was like, I think
That's
that's
got to
like,
be it.
yeah. So that was like my dad, my mom, and my sister, and my brother um, were there, and because they all got split up. And at the same time, my Aaron's stepdad is running back from mile 20 to try and meet me. He's like, I'm going to try and meet him like closer to mile 18. So there's a lot of logistical stuff going on. But at that time, my mom was there, and she walked all up and down. She was telling me, she like kind of ran up alongside me, and she's like, do you want like this aspirin? She had like Swedish fish and then like a fruit bar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just enough to get me through because there were some other gels I saw, and I was like, I don't know if they could caffeine. I've never had this gel before. The worst thing that could happen right now is like I get an upset stomach. So
Right, right.
she gave me all that stuff and just enough to get me through like the next piece, just like get something in my body. And she's like, I went through and I like asked everybody, and everyone was emptying their purse. And she's like, my son needs this. So she
Oh,
had
that's
gathered
so
all this stuff
sweet.
from a bunch of strangers. None of this was hers. So that was really cool, and it was a good kind of boost. Like, there's a video of my mom like running alongside me for like like 10, 15 seconds while she's handing me the stuff that I put on TikTok, and um, it was good. Like they were like they were cheering me on. So that was a big thing. It was too just to see somebody because it was a long stretch, like 10 miles, not seeing anybody, and then getting that boost of energy. So that was really nice because then I'm running on the highway, and then it's like weird, and then we're like the turnaround point. It was like kind of we ran this way. The turnaround point went like this, and then back up the bridge. And we went like a forest preserve. It was weird. It was like if you take your local forest preserve, you're walking your dog or whatever, and like it just felt like that. So it was like very weird, like phases of the race. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
where am I going? So that, and then my wife's stepdad, he like I saw him around like mile 18, so 3 miles later, he like handed me the gels. Cause he like shaved like a mile off to get a little bit closer. He was like walking, running. Which hey, now he's running. Well, we're actually gonna. It's funny because at that time he then started training for a race, and now we're gonna run a 10K next week together. So
Oh, cool.
him, my
Got
wife,
him
and
into
then our
it.
stepdad. So he was, so it's funny. But he was like, he handed me that, and he's like, hey, it's a really good stretch. It's like mile 18. He's like, this is good. So it kind of opened up this big kind of like cliff like side thing, and you're looking out into Lake Michigan. So it was very beautiful. But there was a lot of like uphill, like again, I don't know who designed the race. Not, I hope they changed it. I was not ready for it. But
Yeah.
there were some hills there, and then mile 20, I saw my mother-in-law, and my wife, and they handed me like a Gatorade. And then that was the last time I had anybody. So mile 20 to 26.2 was just me, um, and I was just like, just don't walk. It was just my thing. Is I wanted to finish strong. I was kind of keeping an eye on my time, um, and I was I was if I slowed down, I didn't know if I can get back going. So I think if I slowed down or took a walk break, I don't think I could get there because my feet were hurting. And then a big thing, which is like I'm trying now, is my posture. My
Mm.
shoulders were hurting
Mm. Yeah.
really bad because my posture was suffering. I was like kind of like leaning forward. So
Sure.
it's an interesting feeling where you're used to your feet and your knees hurting, but your shoulders hurt more than anything else because I was just like I was kind of hunched over.
Like,
I didn't have
yeah.
so at that point I was running for like 4 hours. So that was really bad. So there's a lot of pain happening at that time. Uh, so I was just like I just got to keep going. I got to push through it. And it's 3 miles or so, and then the last like 3 miles of the race, we actually go back onto the bridge, up, and then go down again. Which, again, I
That's
guess it's
mean.
easier to go down, but I'm telling you, Taylor, it was like you go on that bridge and it was going up, and it almost looked like a graveyard of just
Oh.
lost souls. Everyone's just like people were walking, like it looked terrible. Like it's just like people were like they were hurting.
Right.
And I was like, I was like running past, and I was like, I don't want to walk. So I'm like going through, and there were a lot of people around, and then I was just like, for the people that I thought needed it, I was like, hey, I was like, you got this, like keep going, and it was kind of cool. We got some more people to kind of pick up on runs. Um, it was so windy, so like there was wind component of it too. So I like had to take my hat off and like run with my hat in my hand, also would have like blown off. That was like the hardest part, I think, was that last like mile and a half on that
On the bridge.
yeah, on the bridge. Because like I said, you're just looking at everybody else walking, and people were hurting. But then you go down from there. We went down, and then there's like the last like mile, like half mile. It kind of turns to the gate piece of it, and then there's people all around, and it was really cool because my sister was there. She's taking a video of me, and my mom were like running along the side.
Oh,
And
nice.
they were like, you got this, you got this. And they like turned around the corner, and then I saw my dad and Aaron's stepdad were there. They had like signs like, go, go. And I saw um, Aaron and my mother-in-law, and they were like, you got sight. I got to see them each piece. And then my brother, he like ran alongside on like the gate, like right next to me for like the last like 0.1 or mile. Just like get me there. And it was really cool. And of course, I'm like I have to pass these last few people to like get my spot. I don't know, just funny. Like people that are, I'm like I gotta pass these people
Time
for
to
some
race.
piece. Like,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, and I like I pushed through pretty hard on the last bit of it, and I crossed the finish line and just got like really emotional, which I feel like a lot of people do. Of big culmination of a race, just like they put the medal on, and then just like kind of walked over because like it was kind of hard. It wasn't like super easy. Like, okay, I'll come see you right away. I like walked over. I just like sat on like the park bench, and I was just like, wow, like it was just yeah, it was just like very cool culmination. Like similar, like for a weird part, people are probably ready to celebrate, but it was kind of cool to have that moment to yourself and just like I just like did this. You're just sitting. And it's weird just to run for 5 hours straight and then not be
And then
moving.
stop. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's also just caused me so emotional in my body, just being like, "What the heck's going on?" So, but I got the medal, and then Aaron and my sister met me, gave like a big hug, got my beer. That time also, I was doing like I did uh, sober September, so I did like a dry month and a half leading up to my race. So it was like my first beer in a while, and I just like sat and like kind of decompressed, like told everyone like how it went, and it was really cool. My buddy FaceTimed me and said he was really proud of me. The guy who ran Chicago Marathon that got me into running. It was cool, just like a lot of like, I don't know, just like a lot of good vibes. And then my wife and I went to Wingstop and ate obscene amount of Wingstop after.
Beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
and then went home.
Perfect.
So, drove back to Chicago. But it was really cool. I think, like I said, a lot of the mental piece of it, the bridge, the middle, like there was a lot of stuff that went wrong. But
Yeah.
the good things of those races, I did not hit the wall. Like I didn't bonk. It was just more of like a physical and mental piece of like my body hurts and like I was pretty well fueled.
Yeah.
I finished that I think in 5:10 is what I finished, 5 hours and 10 minutes. So that was
Perfect.
like right in my target time that I wanted to finish, with 5 minutes to spare. So it was really cool. And now I'm training for Chicago.
There we go.
So I'm trying to do. I don't have a big crazy goal. I just want to do sub 5 is like kind of my
Yeah.
goal for Chicago and see where we end up from there. But yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, it was a lot of adversity, but a lot of like fun. A lot of fun opportunities, and just to be like, wow, I accomplished this. Everyone's saying I think less than 1% of the world's running a marathon. Just like to have that in a sense of accomplishment of 10 months of, hey, I'm just going to get out and run in the middle of January and have it kind of culminate in that a bit, um, was really cool.
Very cool. And I
Yeah.
always love a story that doesn't end with any major like blow ups or any major
No,
situations for a first marathon. So it sounds like it all went
luckily, yeah.
pretty according to plan. It's funny,
Yeah.
according to plan still includes obviously a whole lot of adversity.
Yeah.
But in terms of a
Yeah.
marathon, it sounds like it went really well for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't like blow out my knee or,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
actually was less sore the next couple of days than after my first half marathon.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was good. It was a good testament to my training and my
Totally.
fueling strategy that I didn't like feel terrible. Because I think honestly, it probably would have been hard to like be motivated to run another race if you destroy your body like that every time. It can take a big toll on you. So
Totally.
luckily, yeah, I didn't mess myself up too much or anything.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I always like to ask for some advice, and then I want to hear a
Hmm.
little bit about what you're doing for Chicago as well.
Yeah.
But if you could offer some advice, there's always the runners that listen to the podcast that are either new into running or maybe thinking about training for their
Hmm.
first marathon. So, what's some advice that you might offer somebody who's pretty early on in their running career?
Yeah, I think a big thing is like bite-sized training. I know there's like, a lot of people say like, hey, don't look at, we're talking about the sales component of it. It's the next thing or bite it up into small goals. I think there's going to be in a lot of components of life of like, hey, break things up into micro goals. I think if someone wants to start running and they want to run a marathon or something, like 0 to 5, focus on 0 to 5. Um, it's the hardest, I think, is 0 to 5. And then a lot of stuff opens up after that.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that's the hardest part, is getting a base building. I think it's even easy. I say that as someone who I was not in any athletic shape. Some people have a better base level of exercise, and that might be fine. Some people that might be 5 to 10. You know what I mean? But I think take that first hurdle and just like go with that, because it's going to be hard up front. But like, I don't know. I think after you get from 10 miles, personally, I think it's a lot easier to add mileage at that point
Yeah.
once you get to 10. And I think the 0 to 5 is to consistently be able to run 2 to 3 miles at a time. Like that's a massive achievement. Like a lot of people, like, let's be honest, we live in a very unhealthy society. Like be able to do that, that's huge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of it, which, so I think that's what I'd say. Start small. Like don't worry about the goal of a marathon. If you have that, that's awesome. But also like, celebrate small wins. I think that's huge. That was a big thing I learned from running too, is celebrating small wins every single time of like a good run or extra wide, and not having to be this massive thing. Like having a good 3 mile run, that can be just, you could celebrate that almost just as much as like, or as much of like a half marathon running. Like it's different for
Yeah.
everyone. So I would say really focus on the start. I would say focus on 0 to 5 and then celebrate small wins. Like for me, every day was a win. Like just getting out and running and doing something that I did not want to do. Where a lot of the mental side of things is like, don't do this, or, you're too tired, or this or why. Just, X and Y. Every day was a small win. I think you can always pull something from that. Like, and my wife, she's running the 10K with me next week, and she's doing her first race because she lost a bet. But I just like, for her, she's like, oh, I like didn't have this. It's like, well, hey, a run is better than, a bad run's better than no run, or that. So I think there's a lot of methodologies behind that. So that would
Love
be
it.
my advice.
Cool. I love it. That's great advice. These last few questions I like to ask about fuel, shoes, and now socks, because somebody brought up socks a couple episodes ago, and we're going to roll with that now. So what
Yeah.
have you liked in terms of fuel throughout your journey so far?
Yeah, for fuel, so I use when I'm running, I'm pretty like, I found something that works. I don't use any caffeine like gels. I know some people like the caffeine, a lot of people don't. I use the honey stinger gels is what I
Mm-hmm.
use.
Yeah.
Specifically, it's a fruit smoothie is what I use.
Oh, I love those.
So
Those are
yeah,
my
so I
favorite
use the
too.
fruit smoothie one. I use that. It's good for me. It tastes good to where, it's not too overpowering. I feel like there's some sugar component to it. I usually use those for my big run, for my runs when I'm training. For any long runs, I usually have those. I also like to, if I'm doing it for like a breakfast before a long run, I'll do like the honey stinger waffles will be the other
Mm-hmm.
one too. I know that's what a lot of people like. But I usually use those. I've tried like the chews or the gummies and stuff. I don't know, like I can't like really get the taste right or anything. Like, but I feel like the fruit smoothie one, it's enough to where it's a gel, easily consumable, doesn't like wreck my stomach, and it tastes good. I would say it actually like, it doesn't taste like I'm trying to get a bunch of some sodium or X or Y, which you can taste in
Yeah.
some of the products. Sometimes like I've had the chew equivalent of those, or like the bites, and
Yeah.
not as much like that. But that, and then also like for a really long run or something like that, I'll have like kind of the sugar, like a Skittles or something like that, maybe at the end, just to be like power me through like the last few miles, to have some sort of dopamine hit while I'm like
Something to
dying.
look forward to.
Yeah, so that, and then I usually eat I usually do a light breakfast the morning of, because I can get, if I'm not too careful, I get like stomach issues and everything too. So I
Gotcha.
usually, but I don't run fasted. I think that's a really hard part. I know a lot of people that run fasted. It's just hard for me. Like
Yeah.
it's hard for me to run and then be like, wow, like my stomach really hurts right now. So
Yeah.
I know there's the pros, the cons of it. People that say running fast, it can do a lot for you. I'm not there yet, but it's usually what I'm doing for like fuel and such.
Cool. Love it. And then shoes. I know you said you're a big Brooks guy. Is there
Yes.
anything besides the Ghost Maxes that you've liked so far?
No, I think the Ghost Maxes. This is going on YouTube, right? So I can
Yeah.
show them.
Yeah, yeah.
These are them. Yeah. These are the Ghost Max 2s.
Oh, I love
These are the
them. I love
ones
the
I really
color.
like. I know they're really cool. I got these for Christmas. I'm running in these, but no, that's like my only pair of running shoes. So it's only a daily trainer right now, which I feel. So I have this, and I have my old pair of Ghost Max one. So in case it's like, in case it's a little bit muddier or rainy or all that, I have some extra shoes. And then my first pair of running shoes are pretty beat up at this point. They're just kind of walking shoes in case I need something because the soles are beat up. But I wear those. I just like them. For me, when I got my foot, they said my toe box is a little bit too. I don't know what it was. It was to where Hoka's wouldn't be a good fit for it. So that's why I
Mm,
stuck with Brooks. I also really like them because it's like doesn't really feel like I'm wearing a shoe. It kind of feels like I'm wearing a sock with like a foam bottom on
sure.
them. So it's a good fit. But no, I'm a Brooks person right now. Like I said, I'm a creature of habit, Taylor. So they were like, hey, these are really,
These
these ones
work.
work. And then I was like, cool, I'll get the V2, and those are even better. So we'll see. I would like to get some long run shoes, I
Mm,
think. And then now that I'm going to run another race, and this is like kind of more than just one or two things. I would like to eventually invest in like some race day shoes and some long run shoes, in addition to my daily trainers. But like right now, I'm just using the daily trainer, which um, it works, but I'd like to
yeah.
kind of step it up from there.
Cool. Yeah, everybody's so individual. I know people
Hmm.
that their shoe style has been disconnected, but they love it, or like discontinued, but they love it so much that they go on like eBay and try to still find
Yeah,
it. So there's a lot of runners that are like that, that are creatures of habit for sure.
yeah,
Cool. And then socks. You made a comment about socks, so maybe that's something you're still testing out right now.
yeah.
But like,
So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
initially I ran with like your kind of your Nike long run, like your long run socks, and my
Yeah.
buddy, I learned a lot from him. Luckily, he went through a lot of the ringer of things. He had some really gnarly photo shoes of just like toenails and all that stuff, like beating up his toes. I think part of that was shoes, but also he said he didn't have the best socks, so his feet would just like smash into the front of his shoe because they're like
Mm,
cotton.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I did go on like Amazon. I got some like the compression running socks where it's like it just kind of holds your foot together, like tighter. That's been helpful. I haven't had any issues like toenails or anything. I've gotten some blisters, but I think it's normal. But
hmm
I haven't like lost a toenail, which I feel like a lot of people will go through. Where the feet get beat up. The thing is, like I think with socks, like they're pretty generic Amazon like running socks. I think I just need more padding. Like I know there's some
hmm
where it's like they're more just like compression, I would say, just to keep your feet going rather than like comfort. So I think that's
yeah,
like the next thing I could do is invest in like I don't know, just some on the padding on the heel, the bottom a little bit, and on the sides, so your shoes like it just feels a little more comfortable. I think I could probably do that. But I have some pretty generic running socks. But like I said, I feel like when I'm running, it's like mile 8, 9, or 10, and my feet start to hurt. I feel like those socks could make it a little bit better. So I feel like that's kind of where I'm due is some investment in that set of gear after. So.
yeah, yeah. You'll
Mhm.
constantly pick up stuff that even 10 years into
Yeah.
running, it sounds like you're constantly going to learn something new. So,
Hmm.
well, cool. Well, thank you so much for going through your story and
Hmm.
answering those few questions at the end there. We're going to jump over and continue to answer some questions about Chicago. But if anybody wants to follow along with you, where can they find you?
So they can find me on TikTok and Instagram since we never know what's going to happen with TikTok. You can find me on both at
Yeah.
Outrun Average. It's OUTRUN Average, AVERAGE. So you can find me on there. I post a lot of like running content stuff. Instagram, it's more like daily, like running stuff, and then TikTok, it's training, but also like kind of like running content, like skits and stuff like that. So feel free to check it out. I post pretty regularly, and I try to follow back everyone who engages with me. Really cool running community. So you can find me there.
Cool. Well, I'll link it in the show notes as well. Thank you again for sharing your story, and we're going to jump over to the bonus. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode. If you're enjoying My First Marathon, it would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the show. As a reminder, check out myfirstmarathonpodcast.com for free resources, and if you can't get enough MFM for $5 a month, you can also get access to extended episodes, bonus content, and a Q&A corner featuring some of our most popular guests. Check out the exclusives tab on the website for more information. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.